Okay, great to have you all here. Let's set certain procedures for our today's conversation. We know that today we are going to talk about and we are going to look at the questions you framed and the question papers you framed. So what I suggest is that one person at a time, first we will do a round of looking at just the question. So the research scholar who is presenting the question then will enable their video. They will do share screen and put the question before us. All of us who may know the subject matter a little and think that they have a sense of what the answer is supposed to be, they will jot down a couple of points and then they can respond to what do they think is expected. They think that this is what is expected of them in the question. Then the person who has framed the question reflect and say whether this is what you expected or you expected something else. That's the only way to find out when we frame the question, has it been communicated in the same manner in which we expected it to be answered? Is that clear? So who's starting? Who's starting first? Who wants to start first? Ashok?
Yes, ma'am.
I will start, ma'am.
Anushka?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then you come on screen and share your screen. Everybody else has to mute their mics.
Am I able to? Am I visible? Am I visible?
Yes, you are. You are. Your screen is not. Your screen was visible for a second.
1 second. It's showing it's sharing.
Okay. Then show us the question.
Written question?
You have framed a question today?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so show us the question.
Can I speak up for that one or a written paper?
Better to have it written.
I do not have a written one. If somebody has a written one, till then I know the question.
Somebody else who has Shikhar?
Written.
Shikhar, you want to come back?
Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, Shikhar
I'm
is
in
coming back.
hospital right now. I cannot participate.
Why? Shikhar, share your screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes. You are visible, not your screen. Yeah. So read the first question. Everybody, please pay attention. Shikha, what do you want to say? You have raised hand. Everybody, please be quiet. We have the question here. Elucidate the broad connotations of the term artificial intelligence and point out the definition of artificial intelligence that you think is the most reflective of the term. Okay, so we have this question number 1. Anyone who has a sense of this question, have sense that you know this subject at all and what you think is expected of the answer. Elucidate the broad connotations of the term artificial intelligence and point out the definition of artificial intelligence that you think is the most reflective of the term.
Basically, it is required to be explained, ma'am.
Explain. Explain means what?
What the term denotes, artificial intelligence term.
Okay, what else is no, this is a 10-mark question. Anything else which needs to
Hello.
be given as an answer? Shikhar, what do you expect?
Ma'am, I'm explaining. Just 1 second.
Do you want in this answer that what is the essential ingredients that constitute a artificial intelligence?
Mhm. Actually, I expect that students will, there are different meanings of artificial intelligence. What do we mean by artificial intelligence? So I expected that students will illustrate the different meanings of the artificial intelligence, what actually artificial intelligence means, and then point out that meaning of artificial intelligence and that definition that they think is the most appropriate for the term artificial intelligence.
And when they will be saying this is the most important or most reflective of the term, is there a perspective from which they should decide this question?
Yes, ma'am. There actually, I wanted to know what do students mean by artificial intelligence and what do they, because artificial intelligence is a very broad term. So when I will teach the course to students, I will explain the different ways artificial intelligence is defined and different definitions of artificial intelligence. So in the second part here, I want to come up with that definition that they think is truly reflective of artificial intelligence. So it is not just students perspective, but I think I wanted them to come at the best definition that symbolizes that entity is actually intelligent, that it thinks on its own.
Okay, let's look at the second question also. Distinguish between the broad approaches of developing artificial intelligence and the subsequent types of artificial intelligence so created. What do you expect in the answer? Shikhar?
Ma'am, should I speak? Ma'am,
You tell, because I think most of us do not know the subject well. You
yes,
tell
ma'am.
us
So
what
I
you
will
expect.
explain, ma'am. So because there are 8 questions and we have to attempt 25 questions, so I have made these 2 questions from the introductory part that are similar to each other. So in this, the students will point out the different ways in which artificial intelligence is created. Like sometimes artificial intelligence is just a complex programming which still works according to the instructions of the human of a human being. But sometimes artificial intelligence as currently being developed by Google and certain other companies is actually intelligent. The human being does not give any need not give any instructions, but it can think on its own. So I want to distinguish between what is the difference between the various approaches of developing artificial intelligence and what is the different types of intelligence so created. So so if they are able to distinguish between the different approaches and different types of intelligence, so they will know that what kind of intelligence is actually required to be regulated by law and what will be the different models of liability for the different types of intelligence so created.
My question to
So
you
I
will
want
be
them.
that
Yes,
between
ma'am.
the first and second question, are there any overlapping subjects which can be written in the first as well as in second?
Yes, ma'am. The definition, because when uh, uh, the different definition of artificial intelligence can itself point out to the different ways in which they expect the artificial intelligence to be created. So
So,
they
so
are
then, so
they
then
are
as
kind
a
of
question
related
paper, no,
topics.
Shiva, listen, all of us, if as a question paper we put two questions which may have some overlapping information, the student, if the student says the first part, no, the 2 pages of the first answer may also be read as part of the second, will that be acceptable? Because why should you write the same thing all over again?
Ma'am, I think that in the first and second question you are saying.
Yeah. So these
Ma'am,
are
I think that
overlapping
in the,
information. We should avoid that. What it does happen is
ma'am,
very
actually
common mistake we find in the
the
news.
right, but actually I put this question with the with this in mind that the first part of the course that I will teach will only focus on what is intelligence and the definitions of intelligence and the approaches of developing intelligence. So actually, when we define intelligence, either that is complete in itself. You can define the different meanings of artificial intelligence and the best meaning of intelligence, and then it is further some step ahead of that. Then you can distinguish the how different kinds of intelligences are made. So like approaches of developing intelligence is one step further than the definition of artificial intelligence. Means we
Okay.
start where definitions have end. We have ended the definition. We start there when we start talking about approaches of developing artificial intelligence.
No, but when we are saying the broad connotations of the term artificial intelligence, will they not be talking about broad approaches of developing artificial intelligence?
Ma'am, there can be a small overlap. That you are right. Maybe it can be removed through
Yeah, so that's something we should be wary about.
different question.
Because when we start
Yes,
thinking from the student's perspective, sometimes like if the same thing was asked to us in 3 questions. So they feel very confused as to what is it that was different, which was being asked for. And that's where I thought
Right.
that even though I did not know much about it, but I felt that the first 2 questions seem like overlapping. And it may be very difficult to develop completely. And also the second question I had, whether the amount of information which will be required to be given in second and in the first are more or less the same.
Amount of information means like how many pages they will be need
Yeah,
to be filled.
what, you know, how many heads of information will be there? Because both of them are.
I think that will be more or less near about same, ma'am.
Yeah, so that's okay. That's but that's the another thing one has to keep track of. Because when they're the same marks, then the amount of information we want them to give, whether or not, so whatever we want. Sometimes it may be that your descriptive question may be a little lengthy, but if it's an application of mind, you may want to that they're not so lengthy. But usually from the student's perspective, they would want it to be that they are writing about the same details, a similar kind of space they're using for the similar numbered questions. From the student's perspective, that is how they look at it. So, okay. Anybody else who wants to share?
Right, ma'am.
We'll come back to the question paper completely also again. So who wants to share another question? Ashok, you have raised your hand.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I have prepared a question paper. Just wait, I'm sharing it. I'm not getting it in my mobile. Just wait, ma'am. Document. It was in document. Ma'am, actually, that question paper is also sent by me to your email ID. I'm not getting it here because I'm using this app in mobile. It is
Let me see if I have it. Okay, I've got the question paper.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'll share this screen. We'll first look at only the question and then we'll come back to the other thing that we have. Define the term data explain personal data, private data, and sensitive data. Now you have 3 hours, 100 marks.
4. Yes, ma'am.
On top of how many questions to be answered? 5.
Ma'am, 5 questions.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is all questions carry equal marks?
Yes, ma'am. 20 marks each.
So it's a 20-mark question. Define the term data, explain personal data, private data, sensitive data. And there are a lot of people who are working on data. So all those who are working on this area, write down what do you think is the expected answer? How much information is required, whether your opinion, whether it is sufficient question, sufficient information has been asked for a 20-mark question.
Should I answer?
Not Ashok, others. There are
Okay.
so many people working on data.
Yes, ma'am. We are total 4 people.
Yeah.
Ma'am cannot see the question.
You are not seeing the, you're not able to see the screen?
No,
My
ma'am.
screen?
No.
Okay, okay, okay.
This,
Okay. There.
Yes,
Define the
ma'am.
term
Now we
data,
can see.
explain
Yes,
personal
ma'am, it's
data.
visible now.
Yeah. Any response?
no, ma'am.
We are waiting. We are soon going to run out of time.
Ma'am, can I ask something?
Yes, please.
Okay, ma'am, I'm also doing on data protection law. The first question which is raised by
This
sir,
Honey? Yeah.
it is a yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
It is about defining the term data, explain personal data, private data, and sensitive data. In the Act itself, the IT Act, the definition is very narrow. So I don't think this question could be for 20 marks question. It can be a 10-mark question or a short note, but not for 20 marks, as I believe.
Okay, the other 3 experts, 2 experts.
Ma'am, may I answer?
Who is this?
Ashok.
No, Ashok abhi nahi. There are 2 others, na?
Okay. Yes, ma'am. There are 2 more.
So join the meeting is a question. Who are the other 2?
We are having 26 people.
No, yeah.
Ma'am,
Who are the other 2
Ma'am,
working
12.
on the data?
Ma'am, this is Shikha ma'am and Shoaib. Those 2 are also doing on data protection laws.
So Shikha is not speaking?
And ma'am, one more is Shoaib.
Okay, doesn't matter.
Ma'am,
So one is that the Honey feels that this is okay. Ashok, what's your response?
Ma'am, actually, in the first question, I have asked 4 questions of 5 marks. First, they have to define the term data, and the data is not only which is defined in IT Act, but in data protection and in other acts also. Because this question is related to my coursework, so that's why I asked the 4 questions with 5 marks each. So if they will explain the personal data, private data, sensitive data, and essential characteristics and the term data, then they will get the marks, I think.
How is the word define the term data different from explain? What is the difference that you want the students to do?
Data, in the first half, they have to define the basic concept that what data is, what is it about, how it can be processed to information and all. and why it is important.
No. So is that explanation or define?
Is an explanation with characteristics, I think.
No, because I've used the two words, no? Define in the first part
Yes, ma'am.
and explain in the second
Yes,
part.
ma'am.
But we're actually wanting them
Yes,
to
ma'am.
explain data also,
Yes, ma'am.
isn't it?
I want to. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So if we were to suppose they ask the question, distinguish among
Okay.
data, personal data, private data, sensitive data. Do you think the same
Okay.
answer would have been there?
Yes, ma'am. Definitely.
So one can think about that when we're using two terms, it is supposed to give you different information. But my sense was that we have to give
Yes, ma'am.
actually to explain data also, because there's only one definition, then there's no question. Then it's a replication of what they know. But Hani said that the definition is so small and that's kind of not sufficient for 5 marks in that sense. So which means that you are
Yes,
expecting some answer as well. So if you are expecting some comments, etc., on the legal definition, then we are saying explain. So one could have, and actually what you are saying, when you are saying explain, you use the word explain, but actually you're wanting them to distinguish. Isn't it?
Distinguish is the most. Yes, ma'am. Distinguish is the most appropriate.
So one could have said distinguish between data, personal data, private data, and sensitive data. So, okay,
Yes, ma'am.
we'll come back to the question, the total question paper again. We'll take a break. We'll come back again, and I'm just kind of, we're just signing on to the second leg of our today's class.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.